Hello and welcome to the Wedding Pro podcast, the podcast where we share tips and tricks for wedding vendors and couples, share insight into the wedding world, and share about our experiences. We are Gracie and Angela Felix of Felix Wedding Films. We are so glad you tuned into this week's episode. Now let's get into it. Alrighty! Hello and welcome back to the Wedding Pro podcast. I'm so excited for today's conversation. We have Georgia of Georgia's Finest Events, and she is a wedding planner here in Atlanta, Georgia. She does some really beautiful designed events, and she'll share a little bit more about herself in a second. But I'm excited for this topic because we're talking all about wedding planner confessions, what happens behind the scenes, everything that has to do with vendors, communication, professionalism, working together as a team, all that fun stuff that planners just get to see on a regular basis. So before we get into the episode, Georgia, I would love it if you could introduce yourself to the listeners, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so hey everyone, my name is Georgia Jones. I'm very excited to be here today and just very excited for this topic. I think it's going to be fun and a little juicy, so excited for the listeners. Yes, I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, and live here with my husband and my daughter, Leona, who is 10 months old. And I have been in the wedding industry for going on 5 years now.
Awesome. I love that. And I don't remember exactly when we met you, but I think it was just a few years ago, maybe through a mutual friend, but then we eventually worked together and it was awesome. We love your design. Your weddings are very heavily designed and we absolutely love that. So I would love if you could share a little bit about how did Georgia's Finest Events get started? What made you think, oh, I want to be a wedding planner?
Yeah, so back after I graduated from college in 2020, I got a part-time job working at a wedding venue in North Georgia. And it was kind of mid-COVID and towards the end of COVID. And then once everything kind of lifted up and that felt like a past life, after all of that craziness, I was able to work there until 2023. And just while I worked there, I really fell in love with the ins and outs of planning a wedding day. So the behind the scenes of getting to build timelines and building floor plans. Of course, I didn't really get to touch the design side of weddings, but it was just really fun to get to be a part of that and see a little bit about the industry. And as I continued to work there, I had a couple of people ask if I would coordinate their weddings on the side. And so I took them up on that offer and at the same time kind of hated my corporate sales job. Hate's a strong word, but I did kind of hate it. So just with a lot of prayer, honestly, and a leap of faith, I decided after I made the business name for Georgia's Finest Events in April of 2023, 3 months after that, I decided to quit my full-time job. And at the time, my husband, who I was dating at the time, was probably questioning my sanity a lot, but I was just fully leaning on God in the decision that I made. And the first few events definitely required a lot of learning and just shaping what I want the business to be. And through trial and error, we are where we are today. So I now sit as the owner and creative director of Georgia's Finest Events and have a team of planners working under me who help support our full service and coordination clients. We specialize in high production private estate weddings, and I feel like we bring a really unique customized flair to our weddings. And like you were saying, really emphasizing on that design and high touch experience for the couples and their guests. And at this point, I feel like we've traveled all over the Southeast, from Florida, the South and North Carolinas, Tennessee, of course, Georgia, and we will go wherever the couples take us.
Yeah, I love that. I don't think I knew that you worked at a venue before becoming a planner. Maybe you told me, but I must have forgotten. But I think that's really cool. That gives you even more of a unique perspective. Obviously, planners, they see so much, but then having the venue side of things, it's now you have just seen basically everything. So
Yep.
that's cool. Well, I'm excited for this conversation. Even with, starting in, you said 2023, right?
As Georgia's finest events.
Yeah. Like even with starting Georgia's Finest events in 2023, I feel like you've just grown so exponentially and it's not because of luck, it's just like you put in all the hard work, you're very talented and like professional and all that. So
Thank
I'm
you. I
excited
appreciate it.
because yeah, no problem. I think that you'll have a really great perspective on all of this. And I know that you have some like spicy hot takes and all that.
Yeah.
When we talk offline, I'm like, yeah, bring this on the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. How can we make this informative for all of our vendor friends?
Yeah, for sure. I know. Yeah, you were like, I have some ideas. And I'm like,
Yeah.
perfect. We're doing an episode.
Yeah.
But I would love to just kind of start talking about like teamwork on the wedding day. Like between like the vendors, obviously, we're working or hopefully working together to give our couples and their guests an awesome experience. But like from your perspective as a planner, what do you feel like separates vendor teams that work incredibly well together versus the ones that just really don't?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I feel like I have thought about this one a lot. And I know you have a whole episode on what I'm about to say, so I'll try to keep it brief. But I think where we do see the most friction is the communication, honestly. Especially with our coordination clients. We don't see it as much with our full service just because we do get to handpick the vendor team ourselves. So we're working with our trusted partners. But when it does come to coordination, like we still really value how those weddings turn out and treat those clients the same. And so in those cases, sometimes the communication and professionalism are the first sign of whether we're going to have a really successful working relationship with a vendor. Even from like the day one of our reach out, if their response time is lacking or they actually never respond to our email with scheduling
Mm,
our meeting that we need to have with you, how they represent their brand, whether they even have like a contract in place, which you would think is, self-explanatory or just standard, but we have worked with vendors who don't have contracts, and all of these kind of can tell us a lot before we even speak to the vendors directly, just by how they show up day to day.
yeah. Yeah. That's so crazy not having a contract. I can't even remember back to yeah, no. That's not okay.
I've just to help a vendor out because we'll get into this, but
Yeah.
I want our vendors to be a good representation of us as a team. So
Mhm.
just I've even quickly gone on AI and created a simple contract just to put some things in writing for a vendor before, just so
Yeah.
we have in
Wow, that's
writing
nice
like
of
what
you.
it is that you need. And
Yeah.
that way the client also felt supported and they also were protected.
Yeah.
Especially if something happened on wedding day. So yes, I have done that once before, but I won't do it again.
Yeah. That is very nice of you.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you feel like I'm sure that you've had pushback from like let's just talk about your coordination
Mm.
weddings. The vendors that you did not handpick. Have you ever had like pushback when it comes to your processes that is to help the client, but the vendors are like not wanting to get on board with your processes? Like how does that affect the couple? How does that affect the wedding and you?
Yeah, I feel like especially with how we approach coordination, I think and I could get into a whole topic about, using the term like wedding coordination and not day of, because that shouldn't even be a thing. But
Yeah.
we do come in so early on, like we do try to reach out to our vendors anywhere between 10 to 8 weeks before a wedding. And a lot of times we get the feedback that they don't ever get on calls with planners, which I think is shocking in my opinion. So I just try to always communicate up front. well, with full service, we're inquiring on behalf of the client. So normally, again, we don't really see issues there, but with coordination, when we are going ahead and doing that reach out, we just try to let them know, hey, we know everyone has a different process, but this is what we've seen work, and be successful on the wedding day. So I try to frame it as something that's beneficial to us as a whole vendor team and not just
Mm-hmm.
us as their planner. Um, I think it helps to remember why a client hired a planner in the first
Yeah.
place. So
Mm-hmm.
they feel like in the first place, they felt like they needed a professional that they could trust to come in and handle the back end of the last parts of their wedding. So I think it just helps bring in some of that professional support, and we're solving real pain points for these
Yeah.
couples. So when we become that trusted liaison through all the stress and chaos of planning, we want to also let the vendors know, like, that's what we're here for. And we're
Mm-hmm.
also here, like, I like to say that we're also the vendor for the vendors. Um,
Yeah.
because you guys do rely on us so much to provide you with as much information as we can, but also we can't make all that work seamlessly as a puzzle if we can't get information from you just as whatever job
Mm-hmm.
or your role is on wedding day. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I just like to try to come at it from like a team perspective, and that typically helps get them on board, and then being able to just show up as a unified team and a unified front. We give a better client experience all around. We're more organized, and
Mm-hmm.
it alleviates us showing up, disorganized, and it helps reduce the confusion that happens with clients before wedding day when they've got multiple people telling them different things. Like, come to
Mm-hmm.
us and we can help you before, you make a decision that could cause a ripple effect
Yeah.
in the
Oh
whole
yeah.
last bits of planning. And I know I'm rambling and I'm not sure if that
No,
even
it's
answered your
all
question,
great.
but to sum it up, yeah, showing up as a team instead of a bunch of separate entities, I think does take a lot of
Yeah.
that confusion out of the process for the couple.
Mm-hmm. I love everything that you said. There were like so many things that I
Yeah.
want to touch on. I'm like, oh wait, this. Like, I want to bring it back to kind of what you said in the beginning. It reminded me of something that, like, from a videographer and like a non-planner perspective, you probably know this, but a lot of vendors, when they're not used to working with planners, especially I would say like the media team,
Yeah.
photographer, videographer, content creator, when like it's our first time working with a planner, for example, like the perspective is, oh my gosh, this planner is trying to be controlling. They're trying to take away from, me communicating with my client. And that, that's a perspective that we obviously don't have. We've been doing this
Mhm.
since 2019, but in the beginning, maybe, I don't remember what we thought, but maybe we thought that. But I do think that it's so important for like all vendors to hear what you're saying. Like, why did this couple hire this planner? It's
Right.
for multiple reasons, but to make their life easier, to help with this event so it's not stressful. So they're not communicating with 15 different vendors. They're mainly communicating with one. And, that planner is communicating with all the other vendors. Like, I love what you said just about, I mean, literally everything, but like working together as a team and, not doing something that's going to cause a ripple effect. Like you said, there's just so many things that I would love to dive into
Yeah.
with this
I think
topic.
I think one point I do want to make is I also, when I do get on these calls with vendors, the reason I reach out so early on is I'm hoping that they'll schedule a call with us before because I know a lot of vendors do have like their final call with their client.
Hmm.
And I always say, look, I want you to build your relationship with your client because it's your client too. And you have your
Yeah.
own processes. And I don't want to get in the way of your creativeness and what you bring to the table. Like, I never want to disrespect that. So, my goal in reaching out earlier on outside of full service. I feel like this is going to end up being a lot about coordination, but
It's okay.
with coordination weddings, the reason we reach out so early on is because of me being able to get on a call with them and be like, hey, this is where we're at with planning. I want to talk with you right now to figure out what information you have. Let's get on the same page before you go and get on that final timeline call. If it's photography or video, or for florals, like if they told me like a different guest count than they have for the quantity of flowers that they need for guest tables, like I would rather have a conversation with them first and make sure we're on the same page so that when they do go to their client, they also feel more prepared to have a conversation and prepare them for, I talked with Georgia, based off your timeline. We really think as a team, it's best that you bring on more hours for, whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's, first looks that they decided they wanted to do after they booked a certain amount of package hours, or again, that guest count increases and that affects a lot of like decor and florals and whatnot. So, I just think being able to communicate to them like, hey, I don't want to get in the way. I just want to be a resource for you because I feel like I'm going to have a lot more information that's going to help you. And then when you go and get in those individual meetings with your client, because I don't necessarily want to take away from your individual meetings that you have. Here's the information I have. We're on the same page. You can show up in that meeting as a team member of this vendor team, not as a standalone, and they confuse the client
Yeah.
because we're on two different pages. So,
yeah.
Yes.
At Felix Wedding Films, we believe every part of the client experience matters, from the first conversation to the moment a couple watches their wedding films for the first time. That's why we love VidFlow. After spending countless hours creating an elevated experience for our couples and curating a beautiful film gallery, we want the delivery experience to feel just as special. VidFlow gives photographers and filmmakers a beautiful, branded way to share their work, making it easy for couples to stream, share, and enjoy their memories on any device, even their TV. Because great work deserves a great delivery experience. Get your first 10 gigabytes of upload for free at vidflow.co/theweddingpropodcast to try out the platform and deliver your first gallery. Well, I love that you guys reach out. Like, we've worked with you for full service and I think for coordination, if I'm remembering correctly. And I love, like, I love planning ahead. So, having that conversation beforehand, it's like, oh, this is great because like we typically have our final calls like 4 to 6 weeks out from the wedding. And it's like,
Right.
I don't want to just receive a random timeline. And I'm like, and sometimes we do. And it's like, well, these hours are not, this is not good. Like we either need to shift coverage because this doesn't make sense or add coverage or something. And it's like having a call and just like wrapping things up so that when we get on the call with the clients, it's like, they're not stressed. It's not like all over the place. I think that that's so smart. And not every planner does it, but I love it. So
Yeah, I think it also, as a planner, like I want to build relationships with the people that I'm working with before the day. Like I think it's important for us. I mean, this whole podcast is going to be centered around like being a team, and we can't be a team the first time we meet each other. Like, hey, like we're all spread out throughout a wedding day, so I might not see you for a couple hours. So it's important that we build that relationship and also like prepare our clients prior to the day, and they'll just feel more comfortable knowing that we're a team versus individuals, and can show up that way. So
yeah, I completely agree. I also want to like hear some stories without ratting people out, but can you think of anything where it's like, oh, this vendor did not communicate this with me and it really just caused some issues for the client, or like made your job as the planner harder because you're trying to make things seamless for your client? Anything that come to mind?
Yeah, I feel like recently, because we're coming off of our wedding busy season. And sorry, there's
Hmm.
a bug that wants to come in my camera.
Oh, you're
So if I'm
good.
waving my arm through this, so sorry.
You're
um,
good.
okay. So yeah, a really good example, which was actually a full service client. They hired a content creator and specifically requested the content creator for, the amount of hours that they needed. Um, Through the planning process, the client decided that the groom and groomsmen would be getting ready off-site at a hotel. And when they decided that, I raised the concern of, hey, you have a second shooter for photography, but you don't have one for content creation. Do you want that coverage? And she said no. So we went on about the planning. And when we got closer to the wedding, and we were just kind of grinding out the timeline, and I was speaking with the content creator, I just said, hey, like, I think that we need to have a discussion because I do think they're going to want this content. Knowing the client, knowing what is valuable to them, I I knew that we needed to do a little bit of convincing because after the wedding was over, they would have appreciated it. And so I needed to get the content creator on board. And when we had our conversation alone, I said, look, I feel like this is necessary. Maybe you can have a conversation with her in your meeting and just discuss kind of the parameters around why she's not going to be able to cover them prior to ceremony beginning. Even if they do come early, she's off covering stuff with the bride. So regardless if they show up, which came into conversation with the bride closer to the wedding, um, it just wasn't going to be possible. So the wedding happens, content was not covered, and 2 days after the wedding, who gets the text saying that they were disappointed that there was no content of them after the wedding
Mm,
was over.
right.
So it was a matter of us needing to be on the same page and realizing that, like, I guess knew how important it was to them and that we needed to have a conversation with them. And she told me she was going to have a conversation with them about it, but at the end of the day, she didn't
Mm,
and wasn't. And also giving her some grace because she was new to the industry. She had just started, and I know how intimidating it could be to go to your client and say, "Hey, I need
mm,
you to add on these hours because I know that you need it."
mm,
And asking them to invest more money because anything revolving around investing is going to be a tough conversation, but
mhm,
it's just a matter of being able to be confident enough in the service you're providing and being able to do that. So I feel like that was just one example of where um, it was communicated to me that she would discuss it and we would
mhm.
figure it out, and then it wasn't. So
Darn.
yeah.
That's a bummer because that's important memories that, they don't have anymore, but hopefully they're not too upset. But I
Yeah.
totally understand like a lot of people, a lot of vendors are very uncomfortable about talking like about money. And
Hmm.
I get it, but at the same time, you talking to vendors, you need to have the perspective of you're not just trying to make money. You should be recommending to your clients what you know they need. If you
Right.
know with your, let's just say 8 hours of coverage, that you're not going to be able to capture the, early morning sweet moments that they want and also the send off that they want, like you need to tell them, hey, I recommend that you add these hours of coverage because this is what you guys wanted. Or like,
Right.
for example, not every couple originally books a collection that has speeches for us, for example. But it's like after the wedding day, we've seen the speeches, listened to them, they were beautiful. And I'm like, hey, I know you guys are going to want these memories. Do you want to add on this film? And it's like, it's not just, oh, I want to make money. It's like, how
No.
can I
Yeah.
serve my client better? So my little soapbox
Yeah.
advice. I'd love to kind of shift a little into like professionalism.
Hmm.
And if you think of anything where you're like, oh, this is a random thing, but I want to share it, totally, you could totally do that. But you've mentioned when we were chatting, before the podcast, and I'm pretty sure also just now on the podcast, that there sometimes is a lack of professionalism and it affects everybody, including the couple, not just the planner. So I guess my question is like, what does professionalism actually look like in the wedding industry when it comes to wedding days, specifically with a planner, whether it's, full service, coordination, or whatever?
Yeah, I think professionalism specifically on a wedding day is showing up, understanding your role in the day. One, um, sometimes we have vendors who love to overstep or assume that we're not going to handle something, which
Mm,
granted, I think with experience, it's unfortunate that like if you did have as a vendor, you had a bad experience with a planner who may have like not been available for hours and you couldn't find her or him, um, that it could cause you to feel like, oh, now I need to do this because the planner wasn't doing it. But if you are working with a planner that has given you all of the information that you need before the day, understanding your role coming into it, sticking to the timeline that's been given to you. I know timelines
mm,
are like a big conversation, but the timeline's been made for a reason, and there's
mm-hmm,
probably a lot of, I guess, times between the lines. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but there's moments in between those timestamps that
mm-hmm,
our team is like managing. So if it if it has a specific time, know that that's unless it's been communicated to you otherwise, like, that's the time that you need to be ready to be wherever it is, whether it's the DJ behind the DJ booth if he's gone to eat his dinner or, photography is outside and they need to be inside for cake cutting, like, whatever it is, um, just knowing those moments, and if it means studying the timeline before the day, study the timeline so you don't have to pull your phone out. I don't know, whatever works for you. Put it on your screensaver, whatever you need. Um, and then also just trusting that if things do need to shift, that the planner will be the one to communicate that, and not going around to the couple and making those fixes on your own,
mm, yeah,
because we have to we have to consider many, many factors that go into making a change, especially in timeline. Like we have to double check with catering. We have to double check with photography and video. We have to
mm-hmm,
double check with entertainment. Like everything has to make sense for every single vendor. So again, going back to that ripple effect, if changes are being made in real time on a wedding day, it should be made by the planner, not a
mm-hmm,
individual vendor. And so I'm kind of rambling on about that specifically, but I think that when that does happen, it does show a lack of professionalism. It shows
mm-hmm,
a lack of understanding on like how a wedding day runs and can cause a lot of confusion for the client and just again trying to minimize that as much as possible and showing up as a team is what's really going to make us all look professional because when
yeah,
I mean yours you're as good as the weakest link, I feel like is I guess the
yeah,
saying you could say is, if one vendor is rogue and doing, their own thing throughout the whole day, it affects every single vendor. And
yep,
that's why I go back to the team because we need to show up as a unified front. Otherwise, you have no idea what the perception of the client is and who it looks bad to them for. Like, typically
mm-hmm,
it's us at the end of the day. Like, if something goes wrong, it seems like it's the planner's fault. Meanwhile, they don't know what's going on behind the scenes and why
yeah,
that problem occurred. But we can't say that. We can't be
yeah,
like, well, it's
yeah,
actually their fault. It wasn't our fault. We just have to take it and
mm-hmm.
roll with it. And so I think it just minimizes that from happening and provides a professional experience for the couples.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And obviously, I'm not a planner, I'm a videographer, so I don't deal closely with every single vendor. But, there are certain vendor categories that we deal very closely with. Obviously, photographer, obviously, planner, honestly, a lot of times DJ. And
Yeah.
not going to give any specific, names or anything, but we've definitely worked on teams where the vendors we're working closely with did not have cohesion and like a team player mindset at all, and it negatively impacted us, our work, and like things were missed because of someone else's unprofessionalism. And it's like, you're right, we're not going to tell the couple, oh, the DJ started the speeches 10 minutes early while we were eating, so it's his fault. We're not going to say that.
No.
That's rude and unprofessional. But it's like, it's that's the reality of it, but it looks like it's our fault, or planners, like you said, a lot of times get blamed for other vendors' problems while you're just trying to like wrap it up, make it look all nice with a bow and fix all the issues behind the scenes. But yeah, I would love to hear some like examples of maybe things that in different vendor categories that you're like, oh, this happened and it was not good. This should have happened instead. And if you have any like standout moments where you're like, oh, this almost was a problem, but this vendor did this amazing professional thing and made it so much better, you could share that too as well.
Yeah, we can throw some
Get into
positivity in
the
there as
juicy
well.
stuff
But
and yeah.
one negative example did come to my mind, but it is centered around punctuality and being on
Mm,
time to a wedding day, which I say if you're on time, you're late. You should,
yeah.
rule of thumb, like I try to roll up 15, 10 to 15 minutes before we're supposed to like greet the couple. Like I'm in my
Hmm.
car, I'm gathering all my stuff. Like I want to be walking up to that bride and giving her a hug the second that I said I would be on site.
Hmm.
When you say you're on site, like you need to be in sight, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, I think that's a huge one, and we have had some just insane things that you would never think would happen on a day. Like, for example, a caterer showing up 2.5 hours late to a wedding day, and they were supposed to set the entire tables for the 150-person guest count. Um, guess whose team ended up doing it? Mine, because we're not the planning team that's like, well, we'll just wait till they get here. We have to solve problems in the moment. We have to,
Yeah.
again, stick to that timeline. So my team had to set everything. And not that we're beyond doing that. It's the matter of like when the bare bone structure of a wedding day begins to fall behind, that's where our services have to be prioritized, and we can no longer provide like a concierge service to our clients and make sure that the bride and groom feel comfortable, that the family doesn't need anything. Like we have to also be there for them. So when other vendors that are crucial about to be there on time don't show up, unfortunately, like that side of the wedding day, like gets put to the side and we have to go make your wedding happen. So if we
Hmm.
can't trust our vendors to show up on time and we have to start doing their job for them, then again, it just makes us all look bad. But at the end of the day, that wedding ended, and who got the email saying,
Mm,
where are you during this time? Da da da. And they didn't even realize what was happening behind the scenes
yeah.
of us having to basically set everything. We had to serve salads. We had to put gloves on and put
Wow.
salads out because catering was falling so behind that we helped them. We were like, you know what?
Wow.
These salads need to be out right now. Guys, put some gloves on. We're serving. Like,
Mm,
just, we have to pick up those pieces for them. And those are the things that couples or and their families might not ever even see happening. They just see someone doing it, but they don't understand like why it's happening the way it is. Um, but a really good example would be when I have a for a media team, photography, video, content, whoever that media team is, you know, sums up to be. Um, when they know how to manage a wedding day timeline and they can honestly, like, when I can trust that team to take care of that, that takes a load off of us. So when we
hmm.
book for our full service clients, like, again, we're working with our trusted partners that I know I can trust to take care of that for me so that one of my assistants doesn't have to be, behind them all day telling them to
Yeah.
like, we got to push this timeline along. You're getting behind. Like, we need you
Mm.
to, people like when they do respect that, it does really help our side of everything.
Yeah.
Just, you know, helps us be able to do some other thing, like go be with the bride and groom if we need to get them something, or the family, or what that might be. Um, so that's I feel like a really positive example. Um,
Yeah.
Having
Well, that's
positive
good.
attitude. Sorry, I
Mhm.
keep going on.
Oh, no, keep going. I
Yeah,
like
no,
everything you're
just
saying.
yeah, I feel like positive attitude is another one. Like showing up on the
Mhm.
day and being ready to work and serve, and reminding yourself that you are in a service role, like for the day. Um, this is someone's hopefully the start of the most important days of their life, but one of the most important days of their life, and you need to walk into that day and have that on your shoulders all day long,
Mhm. Yeah.
and not having a selfish attitude. Um, but again, you'd be
Yeah.
surprised at the amount of selfish attitudes that we run into, and just vendors that aren't willing to pivot if they need to because we tell them to do something, or
Mhm.
even like the energy towards the couple just feels off. Yeah, I just think when we see that and we see happy faces and people truly like enjoying their work,
Mhm.
makes it just more of a exciting and fruitful day for the couple. So,
Yeah, I completely agree, and, like, obviously, there are a lot of really wonderful, professional, positive, team player mindset vendors out there. There is a large majority of it, but like you said, I mean, we have also worked with plenty of vendors that had a selfish mindset and like did not want to be team players with us as the videographer, didn't want to be team players with the planner, and like basically the day was about them, and it just negatively impacts the clients. Of course it negatively impacts the vendor team, but it's like, let's just think about the clients just without even thinking about the vendors. This is the couple's one of the most happiest days of their lives. And don't you want to respect that? Don't you want them to have an amazing experience from start to finish? Not just, you give them a beautiful service or a beautiful product, but like, what about the rest of the team that, maybe was negatively impacted by your attitude or, you not
mhm,
being flexible? I just think it's just kind of crazy when you do run into those vendors. It's like a little shocking. It's kind of interesting because this
yeah,
is such a service-based industry. And like, you and I were both Christians and we believe that we should like serve others, and like that's what Jesus did for us. So it's like, to us it
amen.
comes natural, but it's not always natural for everybody, and it definitely impacts just like everybody on the wedding day.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear more stories about like other vendor categories. I'm sure you
Yeah.
have stuff about like videographers, photographers, hair and makeup, literally anyone you can think of. Obviously, we're not naming names, but we want to know like what did they do? What should they have done? That way, like our listeners can, take note.
Yeah, so I think I think from let's just like go through some of the different categories. So
Yeah.
I think starting with hair and makeup, I think I'm gonna work through like the day and how I see
Yeah, do
vendors.
it.
I think just this is more so pre-wedding day. I think going back to any sort of like package related topics or conversation that you have with your client, being proactive to figure out how many people you have services for, those types of conversations, just because we do find sometimes that if a couple or a girl decides to book her hair and makeup before that she books us. Sometimes that's, they want someone, and these hair and makeup artists are getting booked like a year and a half out now. It's
Mm,
crazy.
yep.
So sometimes as they're already booked, but they didn't really understand, like, oh, I need to let them know, like, I plan to have 13 people get ready and they need to all be ready by 12:30 because I want to do first looks with the bridesmaids. And before that, I want to do PJ photos and then the first looks and then all the bridal party photos. So it's important that the hair and makeup team educate the client up front because they're not going to know.
Mm-hmm.
The client's not going to know what they need, just kind of like what we said. So it's important to just make sure that you're paying attention to that. And that way, when we come into the picture, it matches with our timeline. And, they might not know exactly what time they need to be ready, but if they know how many, you know, services they need to provide hair and makeup wise, then they kind of have an idea of how early they need to start and a little bit about how late they need to end. So
Mm-hmm.
once that hair and makeup schedule is created, sometimes I have to make those. So not to give multiple examples for one, but sometimes I do have to make those schedules. And if a hair makeup team makes those for us, it is just such a blessing because it does take a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time to think through, like, sometimes the bride wants certain people going first, and like sometimes they don't want people going around the same time because there's drama or something. So we're thinking about all those little aspects, and it's important that we have support around that. And then also, of course, if there is certain time frames for hair and makeup, please sticking to that, creating buffer times in your timelines so that way we don't get behind when we need to start the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's
That's
hair and
good.
makeup. um, I would say venue-wise, just being upfront about any restrictions that you have, prior to allowing the client to sign a contract. Again,
Mm,
sometimes these
yeah.
venues get booked before we are, and that's probably the number one vendor that gets booked before someone inquires for full service because they think they can't hire us before they have a date. But if
Mm,
there's any clients listening or potential clients listening, um, please note you can hire your planners
yeah.
before you book a venue. That's actually
Please
a lot
do, actually.
smarter.
It
We can
is.
help you so much with finding the right venue that fits your budget and your design and
Mm-hmm.
just all of the other elements. But just kind of going through those restrictions, a lot of times they can be on like page 4 or 5 of the contracts, and the clients might look over that and then they've locked themselves into a contract and didn't realize some of the restrictions that are there, whether it's, access time for vendors, load in restrictions, noise curfews, decor restrictions, and sometimes we have to, go backwards and figure out what we should do to solve any issues around that. So that would
Mm-hmm.
be one for venues. Um,
Oh,
Rental
yeah.
companies
Access
going.
time. Oh, so sorry.
Oh
Didn't mean to
yeah,
cut you off.
no,
But
load in
access
access
time
time.
affects everybody because if access time is late and then setting up the reception space is late, and then the photographer, videographer can't even capture the space, but like you spent a
Mm-hmm.
lot of money and time on the design, it's like, that's just one thing, and then guest
Yeah.
experience is another thing. But anyways, continue.
I mean, it's a good example because you're pointing out that it's a ripple effect. One
Yep.
single thing affects multiple categories. And so
Hmm.
you just by you sharing that kind of proves our point of that. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and then going into rentals, which kind of can create a ripple effect as well, is show when they don't show up on time, and it's especially when they don't even let us know they're going to be late and we have to call them and they're telling us, they're stuck in traffic or whatever, trying their best to be on time as much as possible because a lot of times these installations affect florals, which then
Yeah.
affect potentially tablescapes, which then affect being ready on time for photography. Like it
Yeah.
ripples the entire day, and having
Hmm.
that priority to get there at the time that the planner says that you need to be there because there is again a specific reason why we gave you that time slot,
Yeah.
especially if there is a load in restriction and you guys have to load in time slots because there's only 2 loading zones and loading docks and you can only fit so much in one spot. Just it yeah, it can
Yeah.
get very tedious very quickly. And so just to be on time of when the planner tells you that we need you to load in based off all of
Hmm.
the parameters, please try to be on time.
Yeah.
um, Florists, this is a fun
Hmm.
one. I wish all florists would do magnets on their boutonnieres. That's gonna be
Ooh,
my number one thing. I
cool.
know it's not anything to do with really professionalism, but I need to get it out there to the world that
Yeah,
if
do
all
it.
florists could just put magnets on their boutonnieres, you would save planners so much strain with just the different types of boutonnieres that are created and trying to pin
Mm,
them. Oh my gosh, the amount of times a rose has popped off and we've had to like try to like sew it or pin it back on, or
yeah.
the stem is just way too thick and we can't even pin it. So we create pocket squares somehow. Yeah, magnets. It's a key.
Yeah. I like
And then
that
also,
too.
yeah. And then also just being forthcoming about their labor and what they do, especially in
Hmm.
their contracts, because that one causes some issues if they don't originally plan to come break down, which we would
Mm,
assume most floors, if they have
yeah.
candles and rentals, they're supposed to come back at the end of the night. Um, and sometimes they utilize it as an add-on. And I just think that it's better that if you have
Mm,
rentals of any kind that you want back, it's your responsibility to come pick up your product. So
hmm.
that's my
Good advice.
advice.
Awesome.
Um,
What about videographers and
oh,
photographers?
okay.
Juicy
Um,
stuff.
I would say between the two of you. So I feel like because I am friends with a lot of photo and video vendors, that I get the pleasure of getting to see and be in conversations with them about like their creativity. A lot of what you guys do, like it is the visual and the product that the client gets after the wedding's over. So I am so adamant about making sure that you guys feel comfortable and that you can have a creative flow and those juices flowing. And so I think it's important if you have multiple people on a media team that they respect each other's craft, one,
Yeah.
and that they can collaborate on the day and not try to fight for shots. And
Mm,
it's noticeable when a
mm,
team of media is like not on the same page and they're like clients can feel that. It's uncomfortable. It
mm.
should just
Yeah.
flow. You guys should be, trying to get multiple shots at the same time and making it feel organic for the couple. But
Yeah.
um yeah, I think that I haven't had too many crazy experiences with either photography or videography. I think it's just the timeline, so I won't go into that any more than I already
Hmm.
have. It's the
Yeah.
attitude. I feel like that's where I see a lot of like I don't want to be here type of
Mm,
mentality. Um, and your team is who is with the couple majority of the day. So it's
yeah.
just really important that like you feel like you're in a service role and that you're there to serve them and that you want to be there. So I think the attitude is a big
Yeah.
one, photo and video. And I get like you guys get drained. It's hard to stay creative for 12 hours. I get it. But unfortunately, that's the role that you signed up for.
Yeah.
So, like you kind of have to just roll with it. Um,
Yeah.
those are
It's
my two things.
definitely.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say it's definitely interesting to hear that you see it as well. Obviously, we're videographers, we work with photographers. Most of them are awesome team players, but then there's some that are not, and not the easiest to work with. And we always try to be very positive and like easy to work with, but it is interesting that you say that you can see it and then the couple can see it because that's not good. You
Mm-mm.
don't even want the clients to be thinking about the vendor team. Yes, we're there, but like you want them to just be like, "Oh yeah, my friends, they're here, they're doing their thing," not like, "Oh, the photographer and videographer are like fighting for shots." Like,
Yeah.
what is that? That's not okay.
Yeah. Or sometimes I will have moments where I need to like go up to the group and have a little like quick 30-second, like I have a question or something that I don't necessarily feel like the couple needs to be privy to. So I'll try to like do it in a way that it's respectful, but also kind of quiet. And
Mhm.
sometimes that's not received, and they'll just like, at the same time, I'm trying to like clearly be quiet. They just kind of, I guess the best way to say it is they bring the client into the conversation a little bit,
Oh,
and
not good.
it was like, I'm just trying to like change something up that isn't going to affect them. It's just going to
Mhm.
affect like the timeline again.
Yeah.
Um, and I want you guys to be on the same page. What do you think about this? Like, it'll be
Mhm.
something where I'm trying to collaborate with them versus telling them. And then they'll say, well, I was going to do this because of this, X, Y, and Z. Or,
Mhm.
I feel like we should go over here, but but I just explained to them, well, I'd rather you go in this direction because we're about to have a vendor load, like a vendor's going to come
Yeah.
by or whatever. Like there's, a reason why I'm explaining to them to do something. And the couple's just kind of standing there like,
Uh,
what is going
yeah,
on?
they
Why are
do
they
not
having
need to
this
be
like back and
involved.
forth? Um,
Uh,
and so that can sometimes happen. So I wish sometimes like, I don't know how avoidable that is, but if we can just be a little bit more mindful of like, hey, let's just not, let's just like try to seamless as possible. And if I come over here to say something like it's in a quiet tone, then just take it as a quiet
mhm.
tone. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's great advice, even for every vendor. Like on the wedding day, you don't need to involve the client like almost at all.
No.
Like if you're wanting to do photos or videos over here, you don't need to ask the client unless they, said that they want to choose. It's
Mm-hmm.
like just, keep things quiet, seamless, don't make
Yeah.
them make decisions on their wedding day. Even one or two
Yes.
questions can sometimes be overwhelming because their family is asking them a million questions. Their bridesmaids, their groomsmen. It's like our
Mm-hmm.
job is to help things be seamless and stressless for the
Yeah.
client.
Yeah. I think that's a good overall tip for vendors is not to involve the client in anything on wedding day. Just repeating what you said. They should not know there is a problem trying to be solved. That is our job to mitigate any of that and not let them know. And even if they ask, like, hey, what's going on? Nothing, like, totally fine. We got it handled.
Yep.
Like, even if it's not handled, just tell them it's
Yeah.
handled.
Yes.
It
Yep. I
always gets
completely
worked
agree.
out. Everything always gets worked out. And you just have
Yeah.
to have a positive attitude about it and just communicate with everyone who's on site vendor wise. And it'll it'll all be perfect and they won't even know anything happened. I just think sometimes clients get involved and they don't need to be. So
Yep.
it's just being mindful of that when you're
Mhm.
in those rooms with people who are listening and just kind of keep it to yourselves, which kind of leads me to like a tip or something that I'm
Mhm.
starting to learn is really cool. Just from like like for a planner, a tip.
Yeah.
We have started recently. I wish we would have been doing it sooner, but at least putting the media team in a group chat with us. I don't
I
know
love
why we
that.
weren't doing that. But it is so helpful because we're all in one group chat. And if something changes quickly, if there's 5 people in a group chat, somebody's going to see it.
Yeah.
Normally there's at least 5 people. Like if 3 of my team members are in there, plus the 2 shooters per category, like there's going to be someone in there that sees the text. Um,
Mhm.
and then we can kind of like stay on the same track instead of me having to like run 50 miles back and forth throughout the day to check in on you guys, where you're at with timeline. I know that you guys are actively shooting. And if obviously we don't get a response within, 2 to 3 minutes, we'll come find you. But so far, if we're like, hey, can you give us like a pulse on where you're at? They'll respond in 2 to 3 minutes. And then we've
Yeah.
saved ourselves 10 minutes of walking back and forth
Yeah.
just to find you guys and figure out what's going on. So I've started doing that. I don't, if you're not
Yeah.
already doing group chats, I definitely think you should. And then another like overarching one for all vendors is
Mhm.
for us specifically, not reading our massive booklets that we send. Um,
Oh.
my team and I have this like running phrase that it's in the booklet. every time someone asks us a question on wedding day, because more times than not, it is in the booklet, whatever this question is that we're getting asked. And so I know not all planners might not do that, but we spend hours putting together these 30 plus page booklets. So if we've taken the time to do that, I promise you it is worth the read. I promise you
Yeah,
it is
it is.
going to be helpful. We have a table of contents in there so that you can go to the pages that specifically reference things that you need to know. So it's super helpful. And there's also important contact information in there. So we have a POC for the girls and the guys in there. So if even the
Mhm.
vendors have a question, you know who that person is that you should be asking, not the bride and groom. So
Yep.
just going back to that and kind of summing that up a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
read the booklets if your planner sends you booklets.
Mhm. Booklets, timelines, supporting
Yeah.
documents, literally all of it. You should read it. I love these tips. I like that you added a tip for planners. I love that. I love it when we're in a group message. A lot of times we'll make a group message with like the photographers as well, but it's awesome when the planner is in it too. And then I would love to share two tips for planners as well because I'm like,
Yeah.
I have these things in my mind. I'm like, I got to get this out here at some point. I think this is a
Yeah.
podcast for it, but I love it as a videographer, and I know photographers do too. I love it when we get like a mass email with all the vendors' emails clearly visible. Like,
Yeah.
hey, everybody,
Not
here's
B
the timeline.
yeah, not
Not
BCC.
no, I want to be able to respond to the whole vendor team after the wedding, like, hey, here are their films, here are their reels, feel free to use them. And that
Mhm.
way the photographer can do that as well, instead of like, a lot of times I have to hunt for everybody's individual emails. And I'm going to be honest, most videographers are not going to do that to send content. Maybe
Yeah.
photographers will, but like, it's a lot. And then second, when planners will have like just already a list of vendors to tag on social media, it's just ready to copy and paste. That helps everybody because it's like, some vendors are not going to tag just because I don't want to say lazy, but we're busy. A lot of people
Yeah,
are
we're all
busy.
busy. We're all
But
busy.
it's like, if you have that list already ready to go, they're going to tag you as the planner. They're going to tag the photographer, the videographer, everybody. Like, I
Yeah.
absolutely love that because I'm big on tagging and I'm going to find everybody. But it takes me a long time sometimes because it's like, where is this vendor list? I don't have
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So those are my two tips for planners.
I think
If you don't
also
already do
adding
that.
yeah, and adding in there the dress code
Oh, that's good.
because we could get into a whole topic about vendors showing up underdressed, but
Yeah.
it's just, well, it should be like unspoken. I mean, you're showing up to a wedding, there should be like a minimum level, but you'd be
It's
surprised at
not
how
not obvious to a lot of
un
people.
yeah, that was going back to your questions about unprofessionalism or being
Mm,
professional, but um yeah, showing up with just not paying attention to the level of the wedding that it is. Like, even just
yeah.
reviewing the supporting documents can give you insight to
Mhm.
what level of wedding this is. And even if you're not sure, you should be asking that question to your planner
Yeah.
too, and like making sure that you feel prepared and that you're showing up representing yourself and the
Yeah,
team as you should. So,
absolutely. Yeah,
hmm
we've definitely touched a lot on like vendor attire in multiple previous episodes because it's a
yeah.
big deal and it's not as obvious to a lot of people as you might think it would be. I literally was just looking at pictures of us, Angelo and I, like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, probably. It was before we were married, so maybe 6 or 7 years ago, um, at weddings. And I need to like put these pictures on our story at some point. It's so embarrassing what we were wearing. Like he's in like a short sleeve t-shirt and khakis and like Vans, and I'm wearing some random dress that's not very formal and like pink sneakers. It's just
hmm
like, what was I doing? Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
not obvious. You would think it would be, but anyways.
yeah.
But yeah, I would love to kind of start wrapping us up because I know that we could definitely continue to talk for hours because there's just so many things to touch on. But do you
There
feel like
are.
there's anything else you want to share? It could even be like before the wedding day communication, like anything that we haven't touched on that you feel like anything that you feel like would be helpful for vendors, just like running their businesses.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about communication, I think having any sort of like processes in place from like a business perspective, I think it's really important. We're all creatives. This industry is built on creativity. And so I feel like a lot of us don't get into it because we are business minded or have a background in sales or anything of that nature. And so it's important to invest time in, if you don't know how to do those types of things, to learn about it because it does make a huge significant difference, especially as you grow a business, if you have processes in place, because it's a hobby until you do that. Like,
Hmm.
you have a hobby that you enjoy doing. If you wanna truly make a business out of it, you need to be having a sales process that runs you through inquiry all the way to a signed contract to where, you have a follow-up sequence, and then through the client experience, like, you need to figure out what it is that you wanna provide because you need to
Hmm.
have something that can be repeated and have something that you can make happen without it having to be manual every single time. Find out how to do some automations and things that, you can repeat over and over again to where you create the same exact experience for every single client. So that way, when they come to you, they know, like, especially they know exactly what they're getting. It's
Hmm.
not different from word of mouth, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just think building relationships is super important in this industry, and
Hmm.
you should really pour into that, and it's only gonna benefit you to just look at it as, like, you're making friends, because 'cause we're friends now, but I
Yeah.
also trust you guys as vendors. So, outside of just, being a professional vendor, you've become a friend, and that's so great, and
Yeah.
everyone should have that. Um and look at it as building true relationships, not based off of like, hey, I want to connect with this planner because they do really great work and like I want to do weddings that they are on and that's important to me. Like it needs to be true valuable relationships because that'll in turn create a successful business. So
Yeah.
look at it from that angle. Um I'm
Yeah.
kind of just
That's
thinking off the
great
top of my
advice.
head right now. So
Yeah. Well, I loved all of that. I mean, this was very interesting to me because I mean, if we had multiple more hours, I would love to pick your brain more, just like on all the experiences that you have with different vendors. But I think what you shared is very helpful because not every vendor has had formal training or like, has a coach or anyone to help them with these things. So it's nice to like have a planner's perspective of when you do this, it negatively affects this and,
yeah.
all those things. I think it'll be really helpful for other vendors and just interesting and entertaining. I was entertained.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just the biggest takeaway is reminding yourself as an individual vendor that you are a part of a team for the day.
Yeah.
Um, and you need to come into the day like that and respect that there are processes that have been put in place for this wedding day for a reason. And a planner isn't there to be a control freak. A planner
Mhm.
is there to support every single detail of that day. And there's a team for a reason doing that. And
Yep.
so just to respect that and come in and be ready to pivot, be ready to work, be ready to be collaborative and remember that we do one of the coolest jobs in the world. So
We did.
just walk into the day thinking about that and have fun with it because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's not that it's not that deep.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for just all your tips, all your insight, your stories. If our listeners want to connect with you, if they're a vendor, they want to say hey, or they're a couple listening, to all the fun little vendor chats, and maybe they want to inquire, where can they find you on website, social media, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, our website is just georgiasfinestevents.com, and then same thing, our social platforms are Facebook, Instagram. We are on TikTok somewhat, but everything is just Georgia's Finest Events. So that's where you can find us.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I think this was a great conversation. I'm really excited for the listeners to take a listen to this episode, and I'll actually see you later today.
Yes, can't wait. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wedding Pro podcast. If you found this episode helpful, we would love it for you to share with a fellow vendor or someone who's getting married soon. Your support means the world to us and helps us reach more people in this amazing industry. We'll see you next time.